A big development in Tennessee politics is now a big story across the nation. Two Democrats from the state expelled from the legislature over protests on the chamber floor against gun violence. House leaders in Tennessee at the time called it an insurrection. The two Democrats kicked out are black men. The one Democrat who survived the vote is a white woman. And now Vice President Kamala Harris is making a surprise trip today to meet Democratic legislators there. Joining me now, Chuck Todd, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press. Chuck, this is a story that touches on a lot of hot button issues, including race and gun control, not to mention the polarization of our politics.
No, and I think that this is why this was inevitable. This was going to happen somewhere at some point in time in one of these deep South red states. And the reason I single out the South is that, you know, look, the deep red states and the deep blue states all gerrymander, all right? And the state legislatures are more partisan than the population itself. You know, it's true in Tennessee, it's true in Georgia, it's true in Florida, where the partisan makeup of the state house is dramatically, you know, the gap is dramatically wider than the actual partisan makeup of the state overall. And in the South, you have the layer where race is the second layer, or in some ways the part of the divide of which the gerrymander was created. And so, you know, this could have easily been Arkansas or Georgia or Alabama, where you have this super white majority, essentially, because most of the Republican majorities are racially homogenous, and Democratic almost super minorities, right? There's only, you know, Arkansas, of the 100 state house members, there's only 18 of them are Democrats, 82 of them are Republicans. And some of them don't ever even have any competition. In Tennessee, half of the Republican state house members didn't even have a political opponent of any stripe, okay, Democrat, Independent, or Republican. And only 4 of them had won with less than 60% of the vote. So you start to ask yourself, is there any real democracy taking place in the state houses in the South? And they're not very representative of the democracy. They're not very representative people. And so when you have an issue like what happened, where somebody is just passionately upset about gun violence, and you think, I'm an elected official, and yet I have no ability to even have a debate, you're going to have these, what I would sort of mini democracy explosions here, and that's what happened in Tennessee.
All right, let's talk about something else. Scheduled on one of your scheduled interviews for Meet the Press on this Sunday is James Trusty, an attorney for former President Donald Trump in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. Now, we are just 3 days removed from that surreal scene up in New York with the former president in court. So what is the biggest challenge for his legal team right now? Is it fighting the charges in this and other cases, or trying to get the former president to tamp down his rhetoric?
Well, I think trying to get the former president to change his rhetoric is something that there's a lot of former political consultants, former lawyers who will tell you it's an impossible task. So you do with what you can do. I can tell you this, the legal team seems to be focused on trying to prevent testimony. That's what they fear. If they can narrow the scope of the investigations in Washington, then they think they might be able to prevent a potential indictment. That's why they're fighting the ability of his staff to testify. They fought the ability of the vice president to testify. The fact is they're losing all these fights, but that is what they've been trying to do, because I think they worry that an indictment is inevitable, and the indictment might not just be mishandling of classified documents. The indictment might be obstruction of justice, because it certainly looks like, there's a report this week in the Washington Post, that there's a lot of focus right now by the special counsel on attempts by the former president to essentially hide what he had at Mar-a-Lago. Secret Service agents are going to be testifying as to sort of the movements and whereabouts of these boxes. So I do think they have a lot to worry about in this case, because I think the charges could get worse. You know, nothing like, you know, it's sometimes it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. Well, essentially an obstructive justice charge is a cover-up charge.
And Chuck, you'll also have an exclusive interview with Texas Congressman Michael McCall, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And it comes during a week in which we are reminded how Taiwan is such a flashpoint right now in U.S. China relations.
Well, Jennifer, I'm going to interview him in Taiwan. I'm not going to be in Taiwan. He is. He's in Taiwan right now. I'll do the interview before he leaves. And that's, tensions continue to ramp up. I mean, it's pretty clear the United States and Taiwan are both concerned that China is going to accelerate its efforts to try to get Taiwan back under its control. And what happened in Hong Kong has now spooked the Taiwanese people. There was a time where I think that there was a majority in the island that wanted some sort of negotiated relationship with mainland China. Watching what happened to the freedoms in Hong Kong, which have completely disappeared once they took over, and it is, they waited about 20 years, but then did it, has now made Taiwan think that they're going to have to fight this harder. And that's what we're trying to do, bring more attention to it, seeing if they can at least prevent China from acting militarily.
All right, Chuck, finally stepping away from politics, one of the new theatrical releases this weekend is movie Air, the Ben Affleck film about the Nike recruitment of Michael Jordan in the 1980s. So take me back to 1980s, Chuck. Did Michael Jordan convince you to buy a pair of those Nike shoes, or were you more of an Adidas guy?
So I didn't have a lot of money, my parents, and this was a constant source of irritation. They would never, my dad was so against it. He goes, we're just paying for the logo. So my father was such a cheapskate, so funny you asked this, he bought a plain white pair of sneakers and he wrote the words Nike on it and put the check mark and he says, here you go. That was the generation my parents came from. I think if my dad were still alive today, I said, you should have bought some Nike stock back then. You might be better off today.
I think we all would have been.
But
better
yeah, I wanted the shoes, but I wasn't allowed. They wouldn't spend the money for them.
Well, Chuck, it's not too late. They're still hot out there.
And more expensive.
Exactly. Meet the Press airs Easter Sunday at 10 a.m. on 11 Alive. Chuck, as always, thank you.
Thank you.